Okay, we'll now move into JPR number 5. This is going to be your pesticide label exercise. So we'll pull up the JPR first. This is number 5. Given a pesticide label, identify each of the following pieces of information. Then match the pieces of information to the overall significance in surveying the hazmat incident. You'll have 15 minutes. You have to get a minimum of 6 of the 8 items correctly. This will be done on paper with an accompanying worksheet that corresponds to the JPR criteria. So we'll move straight to the worksheet. So you'll be given 15 minutes with this worksheet, the JPR, and a pesticide label. I've chosen one at random. Just like an MSDS, these can all be a little bit different as far as locations of information and general format and layout. The consistent piece of it is all of this information has to be contained on that label, however they decide to make that label. So there are certain industry standards, EPA standards, that require basic information to be attached to this label. And the point of your exercise is for you to be able to navigate that label and find the most pertinent information to the operations level personnel. So beginning with this label, I've chosen Wilbur Ellis's dusting sulfur. This is a pesticide. You don't need to know much more about it because it's all listed on here. Between a pesticide label and the SDS, you'll have all the applicable information for us as hazmat responders. So the first piece of information they want is identify the product name. Very simple. Wilbur Ellis dusting sulfur. Doesn't need to be any more or any less, just the basic trade name offered by the label. What does the signal word indicate? You may remember from our operations classes that a signal word is used to indicate the level of hazard associated with a product. So in this case, we're worried mostly about toxicity. This isn't necessarily a big flammable hazard. This is something that's toxic to people. So that signal word is going to be located somewhere, usually in bold print, and it's going to be a caution or a danger label. In this case, we have a caution. You can, if you want to include the keep out of reach of children, that's fine, but the signal word is caution in this case. So what it indicates is the level of hazard or toxicity. What is the signal word indicating the lowest level of toxicity? Now this isn't necessarily coming off your label, this is something you need to remember from your studies. The lowest level of toxicity in terms of signal words is caution. So this, even though this can be hazardous, it's listed as with caution as its signal word. What is the signal word indicating the highest level of toxicity? Again, from your reading and from your studies, danger or poison are used for the highly toxic materials. So you'll have to have a little bit of memorization from your text and from your classes and be familiar with these definitions. Know which of the signal words is the highest, know which one is the lowest. So then back to our label, identify the pest control product or EPA Registry Number. All of these toxic products will have an EPA Registry Number. They're usually located pretty easily. In this case, it's EPA Reg Number 2935-48. We simply transfer that over. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. If you see other numbers on there, don't get confused and don't think that that's what you're transferring. Stick with EPA regulatory number. Identify the precautionary statement. So we're looking for things related to harm to people in this case. Here in bold print, it's listed for us very simply, precautionary statement. In this case, that statement is hazards to humans and domestic animals. I would go as far as to list all of this. Caution causes moderate eye irritation and so on. But the precautionary statement, identified by the bold print, is hazards to humans and domestic animals. Next, there's a hazard statement related to the environment. That's going to be located separately. In this case, it's very close. Environmental hazards. It's right here. This is one of those times where I would copy down, almost verbatim, I would copy down the key points of this. Do not apply directly to water. to areas where surface water is present, and so on. I would use all of this information. We want to identify what are the hazards of this product if it gets into the environment. So we've identified that precautionary statement for the hazard to people, and we've identified a hazard statement for the environment. Lastly, what does the active ingredient do? The active ingredient in any chemical is always going to be identified. It's usually going to be identified early. In this case, it's right below our name. The active ingredient in this testing sulfur is sulfur. It's 98% sulfur. Don't worry about the 2% other, but its active ingredient, its primary ingredient is sulfur. It's further asking, what does the active ingredient do? And in a general sense, the active ingredient in a hazardous product that's the ingredient that makes it work. In this case, it's a pesticide. It's what kills pests. You don't need to overthink it. You don't need to make it any more complicated than that. What does an active ingredient do? Well, the active ingredient in this product is sulfur, and it is its primary use is to kill pests. You can say that the active ingredient is what makes this product work. It's what makes it do its job. You can use any kind of terminology you want. It doesn't have to be an in-depth industry explanation or definition. Just what does an active ingredient do, and identify what it is. In this case, it's sulfur, and it's the primary ingredient that kills pests in this pesticide product. So 15 minutes might sound like a short amount of time, but really you're only filling in 8 pieces of information. 2 of these are essentially one word. What is the signal word indicating the lowest level of toxicity? Caution. What is the signal word indicating highest level? Danger or poison. You can do danger/poison and you'll hit those highest toxicities. Identify that number, just transcribe it over. What is a precautionary statement? Transcribe that over. Same with the environmental statement, the hazard statement. What does the active ingredient do? List what it is and what it does. Product name is given to you right at the top, and then use that signal word, identify what it is, and then say what a signal word indicates. Be sure to read the questions and make sure you're answering them thoroughly, but don't overthink. You could have this done in under 10 minutes. You'll be well within time. You'll get all the criteria, and this will be an easy pass for you. So that's JPR number 5.